Hey, it is Wednesday night, the 14th. It's time for another Conflicted Live. I got a great panel for you guys. We're kind of running about an hour and a half tonight, so let's get started. I'm going to introduce them, and then we'll get into the game. First up, we got a legend in the prepper community. Everybody say hi to local prepper.
Hey, guys. I didn't know I was a legend.
Legend.
Awesome
Well, at least in your own mind, right?
I know, right?
Next, we got Tag. Tag is another veteran of the Prepper Wars. He's his own utility company. Mm-hmm. Yes, then we got Spags from Spags Unfiltered. He is a renegade. He's gotten so many lives demonetized. But here's the most dangerous one of them all. Eric Porterhouse from Porterhouse and Teal. This man talks about dangerous content on YouTube. So hopefully, guys, just try to keep it away from homesteading, and so he can't talk about dangerous content, and we'll be okay. All right, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
It's great.
All right, like I said, we're going to run about an hour and a half tonight. So the way I want to run this, okay, first off, anybody that doesn't know, we got a bunch of new subscribers. Anybody that doesn't know, Conflicted, the survival card game, is a card game that proposes functional and ethical questions about the apocalypse. And it's meant to help vet people and make people think outside of situations they're comfortable with. And we play it at Midwest Preparedness Festival on Friday and Saturday night around the campfire. And if you're running a camp out, running a festival, I would suggest you do the same thing because it is a blast. All right. So tonight, I got yelled at last time because I used some duplicate cards. So Spags Unfiltered lent me his personal Conflicted box, which did not have deck number 5 in it, that had the Spags card in it. So you are not getting the Spags card tonight. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
All right, so we're going to use deck 4, which is the Survivalist series, deck 7, which is a financial collapse, and deck 6, which is nuclear fallout. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to pose a question to one of you guys, and the rest of you either support him or eviscerate him. And Tag, Tag, hang on. Where is it? I got a special card for you.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Here you go. Very first card. List a government program that works well in your country.
You ask it to the total ungovernable guy. Government program that works well in my country. Goodness. Government. Oh, my God. I'm not usually speechless.
You have the Jeopardy theme song because you should be playing
right,
the Jeopardy theme song.
I think we've got the best military in the world. So I think we're great at fighting wars. I think we're horrible at policing them. I don't really have an answer to that one. I can't think of a program that works well. I think they should all go away.
Anybody else? Anybody can think of anything? I think the chat's kind of in agreement with you there, Tag. Although the Rickster, I'm sure he's being obnoxious as usual. His taxes work well.
I think that if I can chime in, I think that there's actually some good programs, but the problem is that fiscally I can't say that there is, because they waste money, every one of them. But there are programs and agencies that are efficient with regard to what they do. They have a knowledge and an expertise, but there's just a tremendous amount of waste that goes along with that. And I'll cite the agency that I used to work for, which was CAL FIRE, and it's California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. We're very good at what we do. We're damn good at fighting wildland fires and mobilizing on large-scale emergency incidents. I mean, I think we're probably the best at that, but there's just a tremendous amount of waste that goes along with that. So if I had to say if the private sector could do it better, yeah, probably so.
Hey, Grumpy, I got an answer. I figured one out.
Okay, tell me what is
I
it?
think the answer depends on your perspective, right? Works well according to who. So if what you're talking about is creating a program that would indoctrinate our children to be better soldiers, then the public education system works great.
My last comment.
How's that for now?
That is
Oh.
a good spin. That is spin, and it is good spin.
I'm going to go ahead and give an honest answer. They have the ugliest uniforms on the planet, but the Space Force.
What is it?
Very Star Trekky. Okay. Okay.
Way to throw it out, guys. Holy shit.
Anybody else got anything to add to that?
I will say that the DMV annex in Topeka, you're in and out in 15 minutes. I never thought I'd say such a damn thing, but it's quick. They know how to get rid of you so you don't bitch on their review page.
Okay, the next question. Let's see, what do we got here? We'll throw this one at local prepper.
Oh, God.
After the collapse of modern society, the government started a weapons confiscation program, apparently as a way to keep peace. Do you think a disarmed population is more peaceful or more violent, or why?
I don't think the answer to that question is answerable with going either way. They're generally the same. Sociology wise, if a criminal's a criminal, a violent criminal is a violent criminal. They'll either, I mean, you got, what was it, just 2 days ago in the UK, they had the guy who stabbed 2 kids and an adult and got in a car and then stabbed another guy. And why? Because he was an unbalanced person. He was violent. Taking away people's guns doesn't solve the problem. In fact, in Australia, there's about 1 million government level studies that show that violence actually went up. Violent crime actually went up. Because what you basically end up is you take away options. If a guy walks into your store, he pulls a pistol, now you have an option. If a guy walks into the store with a knife and comes to your throat, now there's no more options. It's very close. It's very up close and personal, and it doesn't solve any problems whatsoever.
Anybody else got anything to add or subtract from that?
Yeah, so I have an interesting statistic for you. How's that?
What's that?
So of 193 countries, we rank 4th in gun violence in our country. But if you remove St. Louis, Chicago, Philadelphia, LA, and I believe it's Houston, which have the strictest gun control laws on the books, we rank 189th. That's just a fact. So I would argue that an armed populace is a polite populace.
Yep. Okay, so
Very
Potpourri Life posts this. I don't think people allow themselves to be disarmed, not to be violent, but to have the ability to protect themselves and their loved ones. Spags, you want to take that one? What do you think? Do you think people allow themselves to be disarmed?
After 1 year, yes. When their kids are starving in soup lines because they were too stupid not to leave the big cities, yes, they will turn in their guns. They absolutely will. Hunger has proven time and time again the most cold and hungry are efficient in disarming anybody. And I'm sorry, but most of the gun culture in the United States are a bunch of blowhards who barely go to the range ever. They don't take their stuff out of the containers. Their tactical vest is still sitting in its box from LAPoliceGear.com, wrapped in the plastic. And to allude to what Tag said earlier, the public school system has educated at least 5 generations worth of children over the last 5 generations who will absolutely say, sure, I'll give you this for my 200 government chits for my gruel and my moldy bread. Our generation might not turn it in, but our kids will, and their kids will, and the kids after them certainly will. They don't appreciate this stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes way. I mean, to Spag's point, which is 100% correct point, but I think it goes even further and further and deeper and deeper and deeper into that. The indoctrination of the Prussian school system to our kids, that only then progresses when they become adults and enter the work system, which then they've convinced us that what we will do is get a new TV every 3 years. And then, give them all of the most important asset we have, which is our time, for a money that's not backed by anything, to then lose it all in a Medicare spend down anyway. So we're taught to be obedient from the time we enter kindergarten to the time that we die, in a nursing home. So yes, I think the vast majority will absolutely do that.
How many people registered their pistol brace over the last month? Go on the website and look.
0.06%. 0.06.
Which is how many people total?
Ooh.
Right around 125,000.
125,000 tax stamps were applied for. You whiny little bitches. Point proven. And that's before they're hungry and cold. Just saying.
Pistol braces are just bad marksmanship anyway. Come on.
Anybody got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to take people being hungry and cold. I think it's just a generational thing. Our generations currently aren't going to go along with that. But you have to also take into consideration the people that are actually teaching people are the young people who learned. They're the millennials that are teaching the kids. The people that not too many years ago we looked at as kids are now the people that are teaching. And if they have an understanding that guns are bad, or that, yes, we need to do certain things, generationally, it's just going to get easier and easier for people to have their rights eroded. I don't think that that's going to happen on our watch, but that's why it's very, very important to instill that upon the next generations, because you can't leave that up to others to teach your own.
Mm-hmm. None of my kids were taught that. So, and the schools definitely tried, but.
Okay. Is that the final answer on that one? All right, Spags, here's one for you. What clues should someone look for in the world of politics in order to stay ahead of the threat of a nuclear war?
None. You will get no clues in the world of politics. They will argue about it up until the point the flash happens. If you're not looking for your sources somewhere other than politics, you aren't doing it right. There are plenty of legitimate sources out there where you can get semi-decent intelligence information. And some of them are on YouTube. Some of them are on Rumble. Some are on Reddit. Some are on Twitter. You just have to know where to look. The information is there. But I don't know that anyone's going to see anything coming out of Congress or out of City Hall that's going to tip you off that a nuke's about to go off.
Agreed.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Pepper Prepper said it right. Their mouths are moving.
Yeah.
So you can bet everything you got on the fact that whatever they're telling you is a lie. That's what I do.
It's a scary prospect, isn't it? All right, next one. This one's for Eric. No, I'm not going to do that one. That's a tag card. Here we go. What signs would you look for in order to help predict an incoming economic collapse?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, yeah, that's something I'm probably not the best person to answer, because I don't really follow the daily financials. So I'm probably not going to have a heads up as far as something economically coming. But it's just like going back to what Spags had said, there are sources out there. And that's kind of how I get tipped off to a lot of things. I do keep my ear open. I don't necessarily follow the news extremely closely, but when things are, talked about or stated, because there are a number of people that are very clued in onto the daily happenings. And when I hear those daily happenings and it's something that perks my ear up, then I'll go investigate. As far as any signs, we're already seeing the signs for an economic collapse. We're looking at, trillions and trillions of dollars in debt with no end in sight. And in fact, there seems to be more of a lust for pushing the debt ceiling further and further and further. And we're already seeing the signs. So I think that that's just incumbent upon anybody who's seeing that to take it upon themselves to do what they need to do to get their house in order.
Tag, your financial guy.
Have an answer.
Your financial guy, Tag. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think you have to be one. I mean, I think to Eric's point a little bit, just open your eyes. I mean, it's not complicated. Go in a grocery store, go buy groceries. How's your electric bill? Right? What's rent like today? I mean, I think you can just, how many people are panhandling on the corner? Right? Do you have homeless tent cities being built? Are they expanding or contracting? I mean, I think there's so many things out there that tells you the state of the union that you don't even really have to know the financial world, although there's plenty of news. I mean, we were talking earlier, Janet Yellen said today that the dollar's status as the reserve currency is going to continue to decline. Our own government officials are saying that, which means they're just finally admitting it, to Local Prepper's point earlier tonight. But I don't think you got to be a financial guy. Just open your eyes. That's it.
When you have to think twice about buying that bottle of whiskey, some shit's going wrong.
Yeah, there's no indicator. It's like there are several guys on YouTube that are just unbelievably smart. I mean, unless you're that guy that they made the movie about, who, his brain saw everything, but you have to remember too that took, and I'm probably going to say this all wrong, but that took him a year before it finally came to fruition of him actually betting against the market and being laughed at for a year. So, and then, I'm a firm believer that, when you look at the markets, because I'm not a market person, but I mean, I can follow a line on a graph. And, if you look at any of the crashes that have ever happened, okay, there was always this precipice, this line where finally it dropped, and then there was a certain percentage of loss. Okay. We're not seeing that now. What they figured out is that they can nickel and dime the market to death. And so that crash that should have happened in 2000, whatever, that crash that should have happened in 19, whatever, it didn't happen. It just was this slow, painful graph that's going down to where the market finally levels out. And then even then you're not, did it happen? Did it not happen? Are we rebounding? It's, but what they say today, that the market the NASDAQ took 200 points. After they made the announcement of no more interest rates lowering. And it's like, okay, great. Well, tomorrow morning, they're going to be like, well, 200 points, that's nothing. Tomorrow morning, oh, it's the end of the world. But you watch, they'll be buying like crazy and acting just like nothing happened, because nothing really did happen. If a crash really does happen, it's going to have something to do with something else that happened in the world that affected it scared the crap out of the people who have all their money in the market and got it out. That's it, and a crash is not going to be caused by something governments did or a currency. Crash is going to be caused by, one of the bigs. If Microsoft decides one day that they want move all their money from one thing to another, that's going to cause a crash. Google, Amazon, all the big blue guys, that is what's going to cause a crash. And there's no way for you to know. There was some tale about today, and I'll stop in a second because you got me rolling here. But, there was some talk today about Walmart insiders secretly trading selling off their stock, even as the Walmart is like projecting to build this and go into that and invest in this. And now you've got insiders talking about selling off Walmart stock. So who knows?
Well, they're really good at giving you the fake stories in the news too. Oh God, Walmart closed 4 stores today. The end is near. Or, such and such loses 2% of their stock. And it's like, this has actually been happening for years. But every time it does, they throw a flash news up there on the internet ticker to get everybody excited. And they all rush over to social media, start pounding away. Buy your gold bullion, buy your beans. And it's like, weren't you already?
Yeah, you should have all your stuff already, Junior.
Yep. Okay, next question. Tag, this one's for you.
Uh-oh.
What is the most important asset a government should secure in the event of a nuclear war? I know you're all about the government taking stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the grid, right, would probably be the biggest one, because it's the one that'll have the biggest impact on society. And I'm just assuming you're talking about a good government that looks out for its people. Because if what we're talking about is our government, what they're probably going to secure is their own asses. Right. So from their perspective, they're going to secure their own asses. But what they should be securing is a way for the grid to continue on, because, generators need to run, hospitals need to run, schools need to run, things need to happen.
Anybody else?
Which perspective?
I said I wasn't going to answer questions. This is one I got to say something on. Having worked for the government as long as I have, the number one priority of any government, I don't care whether it's your local, state, federal, continuity of government. They're going to seize the assets that will allow them to maintain control. All right. And what those assets are, I don't know. It's different in every region.
Yeah, but the question said, what should they secure?
Grumpy Acres, freeze dried Skittles. Duh.
Oh, those will go a long way.
Yeah.
Well, from a government standpoint, they should secure everything that's going to help them maintain control.
Yeah.
Right?
No, from a government, what they should do is take care of the people that they serve. I don't serve them. They serve me. Period.
See, I would love to get some Kansas politicians on here with you to have that discussion. That would be awesome.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, next question. Let's go to local prepper here. I did not do this one on purpose. I'm serious.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go.
Describe the average person in the military today. If given a choice, do you think the majority would stand up for what is morally right, or would they do what they were told, and why? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I've got to be honest with you. I'm a little conflicted. So, my gut tells me that, first of all, I was a Marine recruiter. So I know a little bit about the character of the people that were put in, and, regardless if they went into, because of college money, a lot of them will say that, they're trying to find a job. The economy sucks, whatever it is, because I recruited in good times and bad times. Overall, once they leave recruit training, they're pretty much, as brainwashed is going to get, but they're brainwashed to the code of conduct. They're brainwashed to honor, courage, and commitment. They're brainwashed to the core pillars of leadership. And I believe that they'll do the right thing. I believe that the military would never turn on the citizenry, and unfortunately there's an argument that says that I'm actually wrong. And that argument is pretty simple. During the Obama years, it was very evident, and I was in the military during that time, it was very evident that we were building political officers instead of American patriots. And that there was many of people out there that it wasn't necessarily save my ass, because you're always going to have those kind of guys in any organization that you go into. But there were a lot of people that were very interested in command billets. In order to do that, you had to be able to show that you would follow orders regardless, no matter what. Now, with all that said, there's a huge difference between the people who are sitting in silos and have keys that make things go boom on the other side of the planet. It's their job to turn those keys on order regardless. But the guy who's on the ground, the guy who's driving his tank, the guy who's commanding people that are going to be pointing weapons at the civilian populace, these are a different breed of people. These are the people that understand that why they're doing these things. And I would probably say that maybe push comes to shove, maybe 10% of them, maybe 10% of the leadership decide to make a really bad decision. And the other 90% of the people that are underneath them say, I'm sorry, but that's an illegal order. And no, we're not doing that. So I have faith that the military would never turn against the civilian populace. But I also believe that they could easily be coaxed into conducting missions on U.S. soil in the name of humanitarian efforts that could easily be turned into something else at some point.
Okay, Eric, you're the furthest removed from this question as far as your background goes. What do you think about the question?
Yeah, I think that there's no easy answer, and I certainly don't profess to have the answer, but I do think that just looking at humanity and understanding how people are, and they can easily be coaxed into doing things that cross a line of morality. If it means that's how you keep your job, if that means how you put food on your table, those good Americans that signed up with good intentions might decide, you know what, I'm going to do what I need to do. And so I think that there are a certain number of people that wouldn't cross that line for moral reasons, because ethically they don't agree with it, and they wouldn't turn on their fellow Americans. But I can almost assure you that there'd probably be a good number of them that would be convinced of doing so. We see that with regard to what happens with the militarization of the police force in this country, and how they can turn on their people because they've been given orders.
Yeah.
That's not an American thing. That's a humanity thing. I was just following orders.
Yep.
And it really bothers me to think that that could be the case, but I don't have any faith that just because somebody put their hand up on the Bible and are just following orders, because they have been brainwashed. They have been indoctrinated. A lot of people in this country have been convinced of certain things, and they're just following what they know. It's called propaganda. I just had someone on, we talked about that the other evening. And so to answer your question, I don't think there is an easy answer for this, but that's kind of my take on it. Is I think that people are people and people are fallible. We're all fallible, and we can be forced or convinced to make a decision or a judgment based against what we would ordinarily think is moral or ethical. So
Spags is sitting over there looking like a bobblehead. Both listen to local prepper and Porthouse just bobbing around. You got something to add? Look,
Yeah, these are
He's
the same publicly educated kids we were just complaining about being order followers 5 minutes ago, man. It doesn't change because you put on a costume. I was a military police officer for 16 years, and I know the conversations I heard these guys say every time they got to go to a music festival. Yeah, they could be in uniform. They couldn't carry a gun, but they could carry that mag light. And they sure as shit beat the hell out of anybody who got drunken in their face. That's against the law, and they did it anyway. It didn't matter. In fact, the Judge Advocate General at Fort Riley found that most of the things military police did, even on the installation, was unconstitutional. It used to be MPs just walk into your barracks and open your wall locker without a warrant one because it's military property and you thought you could do it. But there's actually nothing in the UCMJ that says you can do that. It's all made up. But because you're on a military installation, no one argued. I certainly didn't. I was a young E3, E4 violating the Constitution left and right because I didn't know any better. I thought this was the Army. This isn't the same. There are no rights here. There certainly were. A lot of stuff got tossed out by the local magistrates because of it. So, yeah, I have no doubt that these public educated 18, 19, 20-year-olds, when they're the only people with, potentially the only people who are currently employed because they work for the U.S. government, they most certainly will round you up and put you in a camp if it feeds them. How many of them took the thing, didn't question, just took it? Because that's how they make their livelihood. That's how they get their VA benefits. It's how they get their TRICARE for life, following that order. And now we know it's an unconstitutional order. It's been rolled back. Now we know that thing was never supposed to happen. In fact, in the UCMJ, the only time that certain things can be mandated to be put into your body is before a deployment. They can't even make you take the flu shot stateside, even though they pretend they can. And how many people didn't question? They just went willy-nilly up to the clinics and got it. Because, man, this is how I eat. I don't want to get that other than honorable.
Tag, you got anything to add there? You were applauding whenever Spags piped in.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I would say on all of this. I mean, I think Eric had a huge point. The military doing activities against the human populace goes on every freaking day right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's quit pretending it. They're driving MRAPs up and down the streets. Just had one on Topeka Boulevard the other day. I mean, we have military vehicles in our streets. I mean, when's last time you've seen a police officer dressed like Barney Fife? Right to Eric's point, it don't happen anymore. I mean, the line between the police and the military, I mean, is so blurred now anyway. I think they'll absolutely do it. And I think to Bobby's point, 5 generations of indoctrination, probably more than that, because it's been going back a long, 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 long time. But generation after generation after generation, the Army, you know, my oldest son served in the Army, and I served in the Army. My dad served in the Army, and his dad served in the Army. And the Army that my son described to me is not the Army that I participated in.
Mhm.
It had become totally different, you know, safe space, leave me alone card. You can't yell at me, drill sergeant, you know, just on and on and on and on. So I think they absolutely would. I think the vast majority of them would. I think you're going to have a small percentage of good guys that have been there a little while and gals that have been there a little while that'll hold their ground. But, you know, when I stood up to the financial world over the whole pandemic thing, very few stood with me. I'm going to tell you guys, it was the vast majority. My buddies that have been buddies for a long time. Nope, it was their livelihood. They were more important. It was more important to them than it was to stand up and do the right thing. So,
You're not wrong, man. MPs are the biggest criminals on the planet.
Sorry, Tag. I didn't mean to derail your thought.
I'm good, man.
I still think you're all wrong.
That's okay.
Well, and I certainly hope that you're right. Seriously, I had some conversations working.
Here's why. Here's why. Not because I'm stubborn, because I am stubborn, but not because of that. You know, there's two major things that a lot of people forget about, regardless if they were in the military or not. Okay. The first thing is the UCMJ, and it's there to protect people. Now, people in the military see it as this rule book, this second set of laws that they have to follow. But it's really a set of laws that are set there to maintain good order and discipline. Most people on the enlisted side don't want to hear that. I was enlisted. All right. But it's literally there to keep good order and discipline. That's it. That's all it's there for. The other thing is the code of conduct. Okay, the code of conduct is unanimous throughout the military. It is in every single military service. They don't have one different than the other. They have different little mottos and sayings and songs and stuff like that. But they have a code of conduct. And that code of conduct says that if you are not required to follow an illegal order, it's that easy. Now, I myself, if you guys are old enough, you probably remember the anthrax vaccine. I've got all the vaccines. I've got, you know, when you say vaccine, I've got all of them. Okay. And that's one that I don't have because when that came out, they were having problems with it immediately. And that went through the E3, E4 network like fire through gasoline. Everybody knew about it. And some people lined up and took it and other people didn't. You didn't even have to tell them why. You just said, I don't want it. Well, you got to have it for a deployment because some pencil pusher created a line item with a percentage on it that said that a certain percentage, you had to have a certain percentage of your military organization with that vaccine. Otherwise, you were not considered deployable in that category. I'm here to tell you a whole buttload of units were not deployable in that category because it only took that E4, E3 network about 6 months for people to realize that was damaging people. Once that happened, it was very simple. You have no obligation to follow an illegal order, and you have the obligation. You are obligated to stop that person from acting on that illegal order, regardless of rank or position. Now, if you follow the simple 10-80-10 rule that a lot of people don't even know about, and we're not talking the prepper rule because everybody loves to go that one. In society, as well as the military, you normally have 10% of the people. These are your stellar performers. These are your heroes. These are the guys that are going to do the right thing every single time. Then you've got 80% of the people that are just average. They just want to get along, you know, and they are basically followers. And then you have another 10% of scumbags. If you follow that simple rule, 90% of the people in the military are going to say no. They're not going to follow that order. They're not going to turn their weapons on the civilian populace. They're not going to be going through, you know, the common, what's the common one? What's the one I hear the most? Presidential Executive Order 33-22 Papa 65 Echo Echo. Have you ever heard of that one? You know, where they can come into your house and take all your preps. I was like, yeah, but you know what? Can't do the math. How many of them are them, and how many of them are us? And when it really comes down to the food and the water and whatever, do you really think that they're going to have the time to do that? Besides, they have a warehouse full of food. So staying on point, I still believe the military would do the right thing. And God forbid if you have one that does the wrong thing. I think if something bad happened, there would be a lot of guys in uniform that would back up your decision.
Okay.
Local prepper. I got a question for local prepper because I'm not a genius, but that math didn't add up to me. If 80% just get along to get along, aren't those the 80% that will just get along to get along?
No, they're followers. They're good people, but they're followers. So they'll follow the other 10%.
Which 10%?
The good 10%.
Well, I'm going to pipe in. I'm going to pipe in here.
Nobody follows a criminal.
That's
I'm
not true.
going to pipe in here. I've had discussion with senior staff NCOs about this very subject when I worked for the DoD, and to a person, they all said it came down to leadership. They said that the rank and file will eventually figure out what's right and what's wrong, and the big fear that they had that was on the front end, that the leadership would get them to do something that they should not have done, and then they do something, and then like, oh crap, we shouldn't have done that, and then they start turning, and that's just, admittedly, that's anecdotal, and it's my personal experience, but I think local prepper makes a great point. It's it's that it's all about the leadership and what happens at that level.
Yeah, but that's a hit or miss, is it not? And local prepper, I'm not bashing on you, bud, not at all.
No,
And
I'm taking it personally.
I actually pray you're 100% right. But I mean, you say that they're not going to follow the bad guys, except they're following them now. So what makes it any different?
That's what a gang
Well, the
is.
difference
It's a
is
bunch of
they're not
people
in
following
direct
a bad guy.
contact. They're
Right?
not in direct contact. That's the difference. And you say they follow. I think that's a perception that we have because we're not in the middle of it. There was it was about a couple years back. There was they allowed this young E3 to be the social media manager for the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. And someone would say something, and this young Marine would instantly go into woke left defensive mode. And they let it go on for a little while until another young Marine at the same rate basically said, "You don't know what you're talking about." And he actually requested mass and talked to the general of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Unit and said, "This person is making us look bad. Do the right thing." And mysteriously, that person didn't do that job anymore. There's a difference between following something that is administrative, that is not causing any harm, that get along to go along mentality. I'm just following orders, right up to the point where it involves something serious, and then people in the military get serious.
Well,
Yeah, I think it's easy to make a lot of these assumptions in the times that we're in right now. I think that when things change, then perceptions of the people that are following orders or following codes of conduct are going to change as well. And I'm going to stand by with what I said earlier. I don't have the faith that there aren't going to be a certain number of people that are going to do the wrong thing because they're following orders, and people are followers. We saw that not too long ago in 2020, did we not? We saw a lot of people just following orders without questioning things. And that's a very simple mandate. We're not even talking about a time of war. We're not even talking about SHTF. We're not even talking about, hey, we need to do this to secure the country's future. They start pushing that message upon the people that have been given rifles and weaponry. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to make a decision to turn the wrong way. That's just my personal feeling about it, only because we're making these assumptions right now during peace times.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Don't get me wrong. If some young lieutenant shows up on my doorstep with a squad or a platoon and he's dumb enough to say something, I'm just going to revert, and I'll be like, okay, time to shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
You
We
got
just
me.
got demonetized.
I got to get the first one in.
I thought I had all the questions so that would not be an answer. Okay. You win the apocalypse. I mean, we might as well just finish the feed right now.
We're getting.
But you know what? Honestly, that question did not go like I thought it was going to go, and I really appreciate all the input, and I certainly hope that local prepper is correct. I honestly do, because the repercussions of it not being correct are really kind of scary. It really is. Okay, next question. This one goes to Mr. Spags. After defeating a small force of a bigger army, okay, first off, let's preface this. This is from deck number 4, which is from the Survivalist series, which is based on the novel by Angry American about a guy during an EMP attack and all this. So these are situational. So Sergeant Linus is one of the main characters. All right. So after defeating a small force of a bigger army, Sergeant Linus wanted to use the captured men to strike fear in the enemy's hearts. How should Sarge go about doing that with the captured men? Remember, oh crap, I can ask you this question.
Is this a family show?
Okay, just try to. If we get demonetized, we get demonetized. Just don't get too graphic.
No. I think that this is a very dangerous question, but I think it's a needed question. And I think this is where you're going to separate the people who are true homesteaders and preppers from the prepper porn guys. Look, man, I don't think that there's a right answer there. I think that the real answer is what your conscience will allow you to do when you're cold and hungry. And I think that people who are of lesser character are going to find themselves making some pretty graphic choices. But that's why we prep. We prep so we don't have to find ourselves, hanging people from the gates, because that's what this question is alluding to. Hanging people from bridges, crucifying them along a highway, and there's a lot of people out there. Again, I'm going to pick on the 300-pound preppers who never take their shit out of their bags. They're the ones who say, "Oh yeah, you should string them up, man, skin them, blood eagle like the Vikings and all this stuff." They're the guys who get a sprained ankle and have to take 2 weeks off from work. So I really don't believe what they think they're going to do. But I do think that there very well could be some scenarios where you'll have to do probably a lot more violent things than you would have to do in 2023. There very well might. I mean, it's going to depend on what the conflict was in the first place. Why are you fighting this superior force to you in the first place, which is generally speaking a horrible things to do. When you're in the prepping, post EMP world, that can be very, logistically bad. I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of parts to this question we don't have answers to, but I mean, if it's because they came after your women and children, obviously you're going to get a little brutal. And there is times where you have to let the beast out. There are times you have to, as Tag said in his video, embrace your dark side. He was 100% correct. Your moral compass and where you line up and what you really have as foundational core beliefs is probably going to determine how close you get to that needle, how soon.
Okay, anybody else got anything to add or subtract from that? I thought it was a pretty good answer, which is unusual for Spags.
Tag's waiting for me to say something.
Sometimes an Army guy can string some words together. Who knew?
All right, so I'm going to be a dumb jarhead and say, could you repeat the question, please?
That's what I didn't want to say.
What part of that?
After defeating a small force of a bigger army, Sergeant Linus wanted to use the captured men to strike fear into the enemy's hearts. How should Sarge go about doing that with the captured men? Basically, how do you use them for propaganda purposes to strike fear?
Well, MOS number 3. Let's see. I would be very nice to this young person, and I would feed him, and I would tell him all sorts of glorious stories. And then I would, I can't say that. And then honestly, I would likely just try to either recruit him and then kick him away, or maybe torture him a little bit. But the end result would be something that when he left, he wouldn't want to come back, and any intelligence that he might take back to another group. I mean, sticking somebody's head on a stake doesn't mean anything unless they find the stake. Giving them the the blood eagle doesn't mean anything unless they find the guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what are you going to do? Wheelbarrow them back and expose yourself? No, put them out on a road and, like what'd you say, Spags? Hang him from one of the bridges.
Yeah, hang him from the bridges, hang him from the gates.
That only works. That only works in a population where people actually would be in that particular area. If you really want to scare the hell out of your enemy, you send them back. And you tell them how good things are. And, oh, by the way, he let me go. And what'd you gather? Well, nothing. They didn't let me see anything. So they might come back. I mean, any one of these cards is always going to lead you to the point where, unless you, I almost said it.
You can say it.
And, unless you give them a facial lead enema, then it's there's the possibility of them coming back. But an experienced interrogator is going to get a lot more out of somebody if you're nice to them, and if you send them away with as little intelligence as possible. You've got to get them back into their gates to make the other guy fear what's going on. There's a lot of things you can do. You could give him false information to take back with him. There's a lot of things, but the end result is never to splay him out in public view. You want the message to go back, whatever it's going to be.
So Eric, we've got the shoot him in the face answer, and the blood eagle heads on a pike, and we've got the treat them with kindness and let the enemy know how screwed up their side is. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I first have to ask myself, what is in it for me if I put fear back into those people? How is that going to benefit me and the people that I have an allegiance to? That's the first question that I need to answer. And if it's going to leverage something to the advantage that's going to be of true benefit, and if I felt that it was going to be harmful for me not to do that, I'm going to have a lot easier chance doing something unethical. Let's just put it that way. But if it's purely just for intelligence or sending a message, I'm going to be a lot less inclined to do something that's unethical. But I first would have to ask the question, what, by me putting fear into those people, how is that going to leverage me? Because that's really what I'm interested in, is me and the protection of my inner circle. So I guess that's just my question. I don't really have enough really to go on to say, well, I would put his head on a pike or shoot him in the face, because I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it's going to benefit me.
Tag, you have any final thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think I don't think I want to get in the business of putting heads on pikes. I don't think that's not really me. I think I think the psychological operations headed back the other way is probably the most valuable thing to local preppers' point. He didn't say it directly, but the misinformation or the disinformation or whatever you want to call it is probably the best route. But at the same time, I think sending them away is equally as dangerous.
Well, I think this card, I think the purpose of this card is to find out whose answer is going from 0 to murder in 3 seconds. I think that's the purpose of this card. So again, conflicted is a great way to vet people. So if you're building a community and you're bringing people in like we do at the campouts and the festivals, these are the type of questions that weed out. I'm not going to say weed out. They expose people that their first answer is to let's go to murder versus and I'm going to say it, Eric, your answer was very thoughtful and I appreciate it. Seriously. It was a good answer as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Next question. Let's see here. This is a good one. This is actually you living in the part of California you're in. There was a movie in the 80s called Testament about a nuclear attack on America. And it was specifically geared towards this question. A major city in your country has been nuked. What would you do after learning about the attack? What's the first thing you do?
Make sure that the people that are closest to me are okay. That's absolutely the first thing that I would do. And then as far as how I would respond from there, I don't have a radiological checklist of what I would do, but it would be basically making sure that everybody's okay and seeing if we can get some more intelligence as to how that city is going to, the fallout from that event is going to be possibly affecting us. I mean, that's where my first inclination is going to be, is just the inner circle. That's where I'm thinking first. And then I would have to assess from there, making sure that we have all the provisions that we're going to need, making sure that, communications amongst the people that are most important are going to be able to be maintained. And then, vital vital infrastructure and services for what we may need to, keep things moving in the right direction. But I don't really have a thought really much beyond that, because I'd have to kind of play it by ear, really.
Spags, this has the ability to go from probability to possibility in a very quick moment. What do you think of Eric's answer?
I think he's right. Assessing fallout and prevailing winds and securing your inner circle would be the first two things you'd have to do. I think in some instances it would be a lot like being on an airplane where they tell you to put your own mask on first, right? You're going to have to secure yourself first, depending on your proximity. And then you can work about securing those around you and figuring out prevailing winds and where you need to go. God, hopefully you didn't see the cloud, man. That's all I got to say. Hopefully it was far enough away where you can get upwind quickly.
Local prepper tag, you guys got anything to add to that?
Turn on your radio. It's the first thing you do. Turn on your radio. We've got so far away from that, but turn your radio on and then assess your situation. It's just because, Los Angeles got nuked and I live on the eastern shore of Virginia doesn't mean I have to worry about radiation for probably about a week, but turn on your radio, because believe it or not, there's actually a system that's designed to help people do those things. Now, if you turn your radio on and nothing happens, well, you're pretty much screwed as it is. But yeah, circle the wagons, execute your comm plan as best you can. Everybody should know where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do. And, I hate to say it, but it's a huge error in the prepper community, because very few people actually have a comm plan for their family. Right now, grandma had a heart attack yesterday or day before yesterday, and she's in Norfolk right now waiting to get a little stent. But the second that happened at 2:20 in the morning, the comm plan got executed, where all the older kids immediately started communicating with each other. And then, that started trickling down, as time went on, so as not to over alarm people, things like that. But yeah, have a damn comm plan. It's not hard to come up with. In the event of an emergency, this just happens to be a nuclear weapon went off someplace, then here's what we're going to do, and then have a plan of action. Execute that plan of action, and that like you guys were saying, circle the wagons. Everybody goes where they're supposed to go. And obviously time is going to be a factor as well. Make sure that everybody knows the plan, so that if time is a factor, that you don't have to try and get up with everybody because their ham radio got fried, or their cell phone doesn't work, or everything is off. That kind of thing. If they don't have the MP shield, shameless promotion.
I was going to ask Tag if there's a way to protect against that, man.
Yeah. Shameless promotion. Local prepper. Use code local prepper. But yeah, I think we're all given the same exact answer here. There's so many, there's so many ways to skin that cat. But yeah, definitely circle the wagons, assess your situation, and execute. You should definitely have a plan. And if you don't, you make one. I'm done.
Tag, you got any final thoughts on that? I thought they did a pretty good job. Nope. Did we lock up?
I don't know if he fell asleep. Okay, go ahead, man.
What was that about? A bunch of old guys getting together?
Yeah.
Craig, you got any final comments on that question?
Yeah, I think I just get a hold of the community, whether that would be through radio or whatever, institute Order 14 and assess my situation and maybe make another run, hopefully. Other than that, get popcorn.
Okay. Next question. This one's for you, Tag.
Shit.
What was that? Just to be okay, we went 41 minutes before anything was said that would offend anybody, and that was Spags.
Of course it was.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Don't worry about it.
How does a central bank influence the size of the government?
Oh my goodness!
How much time do you think we have?
Yeah, well, I'll try to make it simple. How does having a printing press in your basement influence your economic situation in your own home? If you could print unlimited amount of money in your basement, would you live a different life than you live today? Grumpy?
Oh, I'd be living high on the hog.
There's your answer. That's how the central bank does it, right? It's the same thing. I mean, it's, if you had control the power of the purse, and I know a lot about this topic. If you control that, then you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. You guys, money is the land of make-believe. I talk about this all the time. It is absolutely the land of make-believe, and they're making believe. Yes, and Spags offends a lot.
Okay, so and I asked you that question because I kind of figured that would be your answer. So I guess the follow up to the rest of the panel is how do we curtail that? How do we as individuals and as a community protect ourselves, inoculate ourselves against the problems that having that central bank causes? Local prepper, you got any thoughts?
It's not possible. Spags, what do you got to say?
Agorism, alternative economies.
Mhm.
Alternative economies have worked in virtually every societal collapse ever. It's not foolproof, but you have a local barter system. You work to do as much for yourself as possible. You're always going to be reliant on somebody else for something, but if you can remove the number of things that you're reliant on others for prior to, you're doing pretty good. And if you get established in the local gray and black market, just saying, black markets are free markets. Sue me, you might not be able to get power from the grid, but you might be able to get some bootleg beeswax candles. You got to know who those people are ahead of time. You got to make those relationships right now. You got to start working with the thing that's going to get most preppers in trouble when they start bartering someday is they're going to be married to the dollar, and they're not going to understand that just because you spent $19.99 on Amazon for that widget, that all of a sudden now that inflation is hit or hyperinflation are hit, or we're in a full-on depression, that doesn't matter anymore. Like, people are going to be able to argue value in a much different way. And if you're not preparing to argue value aside from the dollar, you're going to fail miserably if this happens.
So Eric, your lifestyle kind of points in this direction to begin with. What do you think about it?
I think that, quite honestly, we can all do a better job of doing just what Spags had said. And I think that those alternative economies, establishing those relationships and trying to do business locally is the way that we get there. Obviously, 100% of all of our needs can't be met in that way. But for the very basic things that we need, food and making sure that we have our own stockpile of things that we can exchange and barter and help each other out, whether that be medicine or any kind of supplies that we may need. And I think it's important to just recognize that. We all recognize that there's something coming economically, don't we? We all talk about it all the time. But really, what are we doing in order to establish those relationships? I think that's a question that we all kind of need to ask ourselves and try to live up to it a little bit more. I know I can do a better job. And I think that other people could probably look at themselves and probably in a similar way. So that's my answer. I don't think that there's really a 100% thing that we can do to stop any of that. But it's a recognition that we see what's coming. And so let's do our part in establishing those relationships and making those types of connections.
Amen. I don't think you top that question off with a better answer. All right. Are you waving because you want to talk? Or are you waving at somebody in chat?
No, I'm waving because I want to add one thing to what all these guys said. The next thing
Okay, go for it, man. Go for it.
Get out of debt. Own what you own. Don't be the problem is we're such a slave to the system and we're so married to all of that. You're not going to be able to go fight it if you're going into the proposition begging for their mercy and asking for their permission. Mm-hmm. Put yourself in a position where you no longer have to ask permission.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then add the parallel economy, then add the barter systems, then grow your own food, then go do all of those things, which all of them are critically important. But you're not going to be able to go fight the beast if you're a slave to it. I can assure you of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'd like to add something what Tag said. He's 100% right. I've been lucky enough to be debt-free twice in my life. And every single time I was like that, it was this unbelievable feeling come bill day, because I'm not a homesteader. I don't live off grid, but every single time it was time to pay the bills, I didn't pay any credit card bills. I didn't pay any mortgages. I didn't pay any car loans. And you know what? It's amazing to have a little bit of cash in your pocket and know that you're not locked to these companies for the next 20 to 30 years. So I recommend you follow that advice and get out of debt as fast as possible, and to take it seriously too. I mean, if you went to McDonald's last week, you're failing. If you went to the movies, you're failing. And I don't say that to be a mean guy. I'm saying that you can have your cake and eat it too, but you have to do it religiously. You have to make double payments. You have to add a little bit more. Maybe you have a plan to add 10% per payment, but have a plan and then do it. And then one day you're going to wake up and you're not going to have to make that bill, and you're going to remember this conversation.
Yep. Hey, G.
Well, and I'll top that statement off with getting out of debt is the easiest thing to do. Seriously, it's super simple. Stop spending money. Staying out of debt's the hard part, especially in the culture in which we live in. So that's, as far as my experience, that is the hurdle that we all have to get over. Okay, next question.
G, hold on.
We just went over an hour. We still got a little bit of time. Oh, I like this one. This is a good one.
Hey, G, hold on. I think this is important. One thing. Can I do one thing real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I tried to put this question up, but I think this is really important. It says, with personal property tax, don't you always have to ask permission? I just think it's important that we stress to everybody that getting 100% free, guys, which I've dedicated my life to doing, is I don't think possible. I don't think you can get there. But here's the thing, is that because I have no mortgage, no car payment, I have none, I can withstand $12 a gallon fuel better than most. I can withstand the property taxes better than most. So yeah, there's going to be things you're going to have to ask permission for. However, just like any general you ask, and I've quoted this many, many times, how many fronts does he want to fight the war on? The answer is one, because you don't want to divide your supply lines. You don't want to, divide that stuff. So get your life down to a manner where you've the entry into your life from the beast is limited to 1 or 2 or 3 things, and don't have 75 of them out there, which means you're, being attacked from every single corner.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's a good point. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Okay, local prepper. Fear can be a little life-saving emotion, but anxiety can literally be mistaken for radiation poisoning. What would you do to keep your fears at bay and recognize anxiety rather than poisoning after a nuclear attack? And let's modify this, because it's not just a nuclear attack. With everything that's coming on, how does somebody tell the difference between something that they should fear and something that's just anxiety? How would you suggest somebody do that, or how would you do it?
Well, I have basically two rules, because I do have a community, and I do have people that are in that community that have different mentalities than I do, because I am one of those people that, well, I'm one of, how do I say this? When you're thinking about anxieties, when you become under that stress, that pressure, will it affect you within the next 24 to 48 hours? That's the first thing, because if it does, then it's something that's legitimate, something to worry about. And then you have to categorize that into, is there anything I can do about it? I always told my kids that when you worry about things, they have a tendency to kind of catch up with you. And the reason they do that is because they're not going to just go away by themselves. But you don't have to think of them as weight in your world. I always told my kids to think of your problems as pebbles. You're on a path and there's pebbles, and there's a problem and you pick that up and you carry that weight. And if you have lots of them, you're going to find out that they're going to start weighing you down. Your pockets are going to get full of nothing but pebbles. And it's going to be impossible to dump them all at once. Get rid of all those problems. So the way you do that is just say, that's a problem. You recognize it, kind of categorize it, and then walk away from it. And the reason you do that is because you don't want to worry about things that are not going to affect you. You know, people get on the broad sense of things, people get spun up in what's happening in the world. Well, I'm here to tell you that 20 years ago, the world was a much smaller place, and frankly, a nicer place, you know, because we weren't connected to everything, because we didn't have these stupid things that told us that 14 people were killed in Australia. You know, those kind of things just didn't happen. You went about your day. If there was a phone call, it rang on the wall and somebody told you something, and then everything went word of mouth, and there was a lot less stress. We're so connected these days that if you don't find a way to either disconnect or deal with your problems, they're going to run you over. And that's where anxiety comes in. Okay. Fear is easy to deal with. You're either scared of something or you're not. It's that easy. But anxiety is a completely different story. The other thing that I tell people is, and it's actually something new that I've kind of got onto, is tasks. People have a tendency to make these lists of things that they have to do. And then those lists get so big and the anxiety starts to build because you're not accomplishing anything. I tell people now to stop doing the little things first. We're so locked in on the dopamine hit that we get from either swiping or accomplishing some rudimentary little thing that we don't understand what psychiatrists have known for years. Every time you accomplish a task, whether it's large or small, you get a little hit of dopamine. You feel that sense of accomplishment is what they termed it. You feel better. So if I have a list of 20 things to do and 10 of those things I can accomplish in one day, every time I accomplish one of those little bitty tasks that took no effort whatsoever to do, I get a hit of dopamine. All right. If you go, you know, like Tag was saying, I was out putting poles in for a new barn today, and whatever you finish today, you got to hit a dopamine at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Well, this generation wants hit after hit after hit after hit. So they're doing all the small things first, and then when things start to line up, they still have this massive list of stuff to do, and it creates their more anxiety for them. It's actually hard to understand unless you understand what's happening on the physiological level, what is actually happening in their brains, because they're very different than ours. Very different than ours. You know, the old adage of, you know, do all the little things and then the big things will take care of themselves. That's not true. Mm-hmm. Because today, if I went out and raked my yard and cleaned my gutters and swept my porch, the poles were not going to get put in for that barn today. Do the big things first and then worry about the little things. And a lot of your anxiety will go away. So
100%. 100%.
Yeah, well said.
You want to know how I get rid of anxiety?
How's that?
Sure.
You run.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I only run from cops, man.
Take and do something physically demanding. Take and do something so that you're so goddamn tired afterwards.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
And those anxieties that you had when you go out and you get something done for about an hour and 20 minutes, 2 hours, if you're really that stressed, go do something physically demanding for that amount of time. And when you come back, you're going to feel like a different person. So that's how I deal with it. And I'm not suggesting that's what other people do. Yeah. But find something that you can do that takes your mind in a place that does something good, rather than sitting around lamenting about the things that you think are the problem. Yeah. Because that's what causes anxiety. You need focus. And if you can focus on a particular discipline, mine happens to be cardiovascular. And I use that for a lot of different things. If I'm sick, I'll take my ass on a run, because you know what? I could stay in bed and be sick, or I could go out and knock out a 10-miler. So that's just how I deal with it. But everybody else has their own way of dealing with anxiety and stress. But it all comes from focusing on something other than what's causing you the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. You know, physiologically, when you are physically active, you know, actually doing something that's physically intense, two things actually happen. Your brain actually focuses on all the things that you're not actually worried about. It's very weird how it happens. And then also that actually releases internal stresses that you have already. It's just good for you altogether, you know? But
it's an
definitely.
opportunity for me to check out. And
yeah, exactly. Turn it
I
off.
I find
think about
myself
something
sometimes
else, you know?
listening to things. I started this the other day. I actually put in a podcast that I asked myself, why am I even listening to this? It's just causing me to get worked up, because running for me is a time where I can just allow my mind to wander. That's my time. That's a time where I can work things out internally. I get a lot of problem solving done because I'm out really not thinking about the run. I'm just thinking about whatever I'm thinking about, and I'm focused on that. I'm not even thinking that I'm running. So it's just it's a different thing for me. But again, for whatever people can take away from that, just understand that if you're focused on something that's positive and that it's giving your body physiologically something that is of benefit, you're just naturally going to feel better. You're not going to have trouble sleeping. You're not going to have trouble, with this anxiety, because you've cured that with something that occupies your mind elsewhere.
Dude, I'm with Miss Melody when it comes to running. I just don't want to pass along. That's all I'm concerned about.
Oh, I feel you, man. I know that's some people that I used to hate it. I used to hate it. I only did it because it was part of what I could do to keep myself physically fit for my job. But once I kind of became fanatical and got into ultra running, it was just one of those things where I actually needed to do it. It's a weird thing.
That's a conversation you guys need to have. You need to have that conversation on your channel, because listen to you talk about that ultra running. You're certifiable, man. Seriously.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
I can't even imagine doing that.
It's a weird thing. I used to hate it, but it's one of those things when you're kind of a type A personality and you like to accomplish things, you're goal oriented and you're driven. It's always that next carrot, right? You start off saying, "Oh, I'll never do that. That's too far." And the next thing you know, you're doing that and something else. So it's just kind of how, it works for me.
Okay. Next question. This one's for you, Spags. They said that someone's crisis is someone else's opportunity, and you're kind of entrepreneurial. So this is right down your alley. With that in mind, could you actually get ahead if the economy of your country were to collapse with all that you have now, and how? Without violating OPSEC, of course.
Okay. Every decision in life is an economic decision. There, I said it. Yes, every decision in life is an economic decision. And my prepping goal is to be the marketplace guy. I've been in the prepping space for 25 years. And the last 10 or 15 is when I started to realize I can only stock so much. But what I can do is start preparing to have a general store and learning how to trade and barter. Can I get wicked rich with what I have on hand right now? No. Can I live better than 80% of the serfs who are going to be standing in line for the soup? Absolutely. And can I do it in a way where I can remain relatively undetectable for at least a considerably good amount of time? Yes. Look, when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were a lot of people who were corrupt in the Soviet government. And for decades, they were planning on what to do with these massive stockpiles of ammunition and rockets and tanks and planes. And when the Soviet Union fell, the reason that international terrorism, other than it being pumped up by Western countries, became so prolific was because now all these weapons were flooding into the open market. So yes, if your government collapses, there's a million ways that you could probably become very financially stable. And again, black markets and gray markets are free markets. This is where morality comes in, and you have to decide what you're willing to peddle in, But sure, in time of crisis, it becomes very easy to become the economic guy.
Okay, Tag. So you have started more businesses than any 5 people that I know. What's your take on this question?
I think this actually goes back to the other question, where you were talking about, Eric's answer is to run or whatever it is. I think when you can emotionally separate from your life, and you can emotionally separate from a decision, you'll make a better decision. And so when you're going through tribulation and you've got these things going on in your life, if you're smart enough to be able to emotionally separate and look for the opportunity, what you'll realize is they're everywhere. That's how I build every business I build. Is there some opportunity presents itself? Oh shit, look at that. But you got to be able to look for it and be able to see it. And you can't do that if you have anxiety, to the last question, and you're all wrapped up in whatever's going on. If you're smart and can take a step back, you can see it. And then there's absolutely ways to, be part of that great wealth transformation that they always talk about that happens in every catastrophe.
Eric, do you see a way to take homesteading? Should the economy collapse, do you see a way to take homesteading that next step and being able to capitalize on the downturn?
Yeah, sure. Tag recently did a video, and it was a community building video from 30,000 feet. And I thought it was pretty well done. And one of the things that he talked about in there that is a message that I think we can all learn from and keep in the back of our minds is to be a producer rather than a consumer. Because we're both, right? We're always going to be a consumer because we can't produce everything. But economically, you're going to benefit if eggs go to $12 a dozen or $30 a dozen and you've got eggs. So be a producer of something rather than just being someone who goes and gets all your stuff from Amazon or Kroger's or wherever you go.
Yep. What about you, local prepper? You built a very interesting business. So
What business did I build?
Your online presence and everything.
Oh,
that's a very.
I didn't know I was making money.
Oh,
Someone forgot to tell him.
you're providing a service for people. Okay, that's.
No, I make 32 cents every time somebody spends $1,000 at Amazon. But I think me personally, I would probably start selling eggs. To be honest with you, I think the eggs are pretty lucrative, but that's the only way I would barter for what I had as far as eggs. As far as business wise, honestly, I would probably be the guy that I've decided right now I'm going to be a werewolf prepper hunter. That's what I'm going to do because I'm really good at that stuff. I mean,
Hashtag goals.
Yeah. Do you have
we embrace what we're good at, right?
Yeah, I've got skills. They tell me that anyway. But I think that's really it. I don't have a. I've got lots of berry trees. I got some nut trees. I got some chickens. But I'm not a homesteader. I wish I were, but I'm not. So,
well, Spags, what should every prepper strive to be?
I feel like there's an answer you're expecting me to say here. Like this is like a test.
Yes.
You're just having the conversation with local prepper about it. Homesteading is the ultimate goal.
Oh, prepping leads to homesteading. Yes.
Jeez, me Christmas.
But you didn't start the question that way. I'm like, where is he going with this? This is what happens when you get a bunch of older guys on here. Their minds start wandering. They fall asleep like Tag, and everything just goes south. Hey, listen, Grumpy, I'm waiting for you to pull out your Sunday through Saturday pillbox and start opening up flaps.
It's in the bathroom. It's in the bathroom. Hey guys, listen, we're running up on an hour and 20 minutes, and Tag's got hard break he's got to do. He's got something coming up after this. Which Tag, tell him what's going to happen after this is over.
Yeah, so we've got another live right behind this with Mine for Survival and Survivalist Prepper, and we're just going to talk about what's going on in the world and those kind of things. And somehow they managed to get booked back to back because I was busy doing other things. So it's just how it works sometimes, So I'm just off to the next one.
Tag had a senior moment and forgot. Eric, you're the only one that's not on my short list right now. because Local Prepper about a month and a half ago did a video, damn near gave me a heart attack because I thought I screwed up communications with him. Spags knew about it, and him and Local Prepper laughed about it all day long, thinking it was hilarious. And then Sunday night, I get a phone call from or a text from Tag. Hey, you want to do a live on Wednesday? And I was like, sure, let's do the conflicted live that we planned for the last month and a half. He's like, oh, okay. You want to be on the live at 7:30? So you're the only one that's not on my short list right now. But anyway, okay.
Hold on a second. So the tech guy didn't send a meeting invite, didn't send anything, just expected all the old people to remember. And then he wants to sit there.
Dude, I sent email. I sent an email the day before you forgot about it. Yeah, exactly. How dare you?
I'm not saying nothing.
No, seriously, guys.
Man. That was the funniest video response and everything that ensued. Oh, man, it was great.
No, it wasn't.
Dude, I had phone calls with, I was on the phone with Local Prepper. I was on the phone with you. And the whole time I'm like, holy shit, what did I start? And I was laughing. It was funny.
I don't handle stuff like that well, especially when it comes on the heels of other things like that where our dog was threatened to get killed and all kinds. Long story, but it's all good, man. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the best conflicted we've had. The answers were well thought out, and I think chat, give us a 1 in the chat if you think this was a really good session. We really do need to wrap it up. Tag's got something, and all 4 of you are invited on again. Seriously, we'll have to do this. We'll wait a little while. I'll get some other people on, then we'll do another geriatric conflicted live, and it'll all be good. Okay, Tag, since you've got something you have to go do, why don't you tell people what you're up to and what they can expect?
Yeah, so I'm Tag. I have the YouTube channel Life Done Free, Facebook Life Done Free. I'm also one of the founders to Freesteading. And so on my end, I'm just an off-grid homesteader trying every day to get freer, trying to figure out ways to get rid of the system and to get rid of the, what I consider modern day slavery. And so, that's pretty much what I do on my channel, is just kind of document my journey to trying to get free.
All right. And Tag, you go ahead and drop off as soon as you need to, man.
See you, boss.
Am I still invited?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, but will you remember in 5 minutes?